Good evening, everyone. We are back continuing, I was going to say, our Andor coverage, and we sort of are in a weird way.
Yeah, no,
We are
that's what this
talking,
is.
yeah,
We
this
got the
is,
Cumnet ready. It's Andor.
oh, straight away, there we go. Any chance that we get, the Cumnet's coming out right there. I guess this is like the season finale. This is, we're capping it all off now, going back to Rogue One, a Star Wars story, just shy of its 10th anniversary. It's turning 10 next year, so we've got a lot to talk about. It's going to be an interesting conversation because we have the benefit of hindsight now with two incredible seasons of Andor. And I guess we're going to be talking about how those two seasons of Andor have either strengthened and our perception now of Rogue One, if it's worsened it in any way, or if it's mostly stayed the same. I haven't actually gone back to Rogue One for a long time, so it was kind of nice going back to this. And I think currently on Disney Plus, everyone's watching this, like the analytics or whatever, like loads of people have flocked back to this movie, pretty unsurprisingly after, as I said, two incredible seasons of Andor. When was the last time that you watched this before preparation for this review? Had it been a while, or?
Not that long. I decided to just kind of throw it on one day. It seemed honestly the Star Wars stories seem like the most appropriate ones to just kind of throw on.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so it was definitely in the 2020s, maybe 23, maybe 22.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I think I was single, so it was probably 2020. It was probably 24.
I've seen this film an embarrassingly large amount of times. It's crazy. I think still to this day, Rogue One holds the record for most times I've gone to see a film at the cinema. I've talked about this before, but when I went to see Force Awakens, I was just absolutely gutted after that movie. I was like, this is not what I wanted at all. This did not hit that Star Wars sweet spot. And then the year after Rogue One, the first time I went to see it was a midnight screening with someone who shall not be mentioned from a channel that shall also not be mentioned. But I did a midnight screening of it, and I really enjoyed
Definitely
it.
didn't hack you.
Yeah, exactly. And I really enjoyed it even then. And then that did hit the Star Wars sweet spot. Now, it could be all the key jangly shit in there because there is a lot of it in there. But I think I just was like, oh, so this is what seeing a Star Wars movie feels like in a way. And maybe I was naive at the time, but I think I was just clamoring for some good Star Wars at the time. And I think I went to see this, but when all was said and done, I think I went to see this about 6 times on the big screen around about that point because it was around Christmas and not much was going on. I was like, I need my fill of some Star Wars. So I went to see it a lot of times. I think then I watched it again when it was on out on Blu-ray, and then not far from me, Gareth Edwards, the director of this, before his film got completely compromised and changed by the studio, he's actually from a place not far from me, and they did a bit of a screening in my local town where he attended and signed for people as well. And got a picture with you, and they did a bit of a screening of the movie again. So I went to see it again there, and that was many, many years ago now, and I don't think I've watched it since then. My opinion of Rogue One did start to dip the more times that I watched it, and I started to see the cracks a little bit in it. And then something just never really pulled me back to it until we finished 2 seasons of Andor, and I guess that's the best excuse ever to go back to this movie and see how it shapes up now. We've got a few people in the comments. Darth Revan says, let's go! Fight, fight, fight. Hopefully not. I don't think I've got the energy in me today. But we'll see.
I told
Who
you.
knows?
I told you. It's what they want.
Are you not entertained? Brinsley says,
shit, where's my sword?
Yeah, you need a weapon. Brinsley says, Rogue One was great. I'm looking forward to watching post Andor. Yeah,
It's better.
Yeah, definitely.
It's better.
It is better, and I think that just goes without saying. With the benefit of hindsight, a lot of the characters in this movie, when it was a self-contained film, it did feel like a concept that should have been a TV show with the amount of like the ensemble cast. I don't really feel like the film itself at the time did a good job setting up a lot of these characters and balancing these characters. You have the two token Asian characters who are just martial arts guy and the guy who has a big gun. I mentioned, like, what did you think to Baze Malbus's character? And you were like, I have no idea who that is. And I don't blame you for that, by the way, because he doesn't have a fucking character. He is Asian
He's the
man with
one
a big
character
gun.
whose name I don't know
Yeah, exactly.
in the main
Cassian,
cast.
yeah, the editing at the beginning of this film was, and I still do have a problem with that, but I guess now that I'm right off the back of a TV show, the cutting between the different planets. We're on the Ring of Kafrene, then we jump and we're on Jeddah, and then we're back to Wabani, and then we're back to Yavin. All of this happens within like the first 10 to 15 minutes of the movie, and I was like, pick a fucking lane, pick a planet, and let's just stick to it and develop something out. I guess that was a little bit easier for me now because they do that in the TV show. I still think it's very quick, but it is the unfortunate difference of a different medium, right? With a TV show, you have 12 episodes where the pacing can be really, really slow. Some would say too slow in some respects of Andor. And then you get to this movie and you're like, holy shit, we got to get this done in 2 hours and we got to cram all this shit in. It's just the state of a different medium between TV show and film. So that was the first thing that hit me, was still how quick the pacing of Rogue One is, when everything else in Andor was so methodical and set up. You know, heists would take a 3-episode arc and be planned to the infinitesimal detail. And this one, it's like, whoa, here we go. We've got to get all this shit done and get all of these players into the mix of things.
So I did something different. I didn't. So I wanted. So I did watch this true to itself. I watched Rogue One to it as Rogue One, but I did do a little something for myself to that you're not going to be able to get through Disney Plus. I cut this apart into 3 parts to turn it into the last 3 episodes. Gollum. Excuse me. The last 3 episodes of Andor, the last arc, which it was a real pain in the ass to figure out what the hell to put at the beginning because it's not a year later.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah,
hasn't
can we
even
talk
been a
about that
day.
for a second? Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. So
Talk about that.
Andor was touted to have to be the 5 years leading up to the events of A New Hope, and I guess by proxy Rogue One as well. And it achieves that remarkably through all of the different arcs it moves through until that final 3 episodes of Andor season 2, where it says 1 BBY, 1 year before the Battle of Yavin. But it ends directly leading into Rogue One and A New Hope. So it's like, that shit didn't happen in a year. Like, so he gets a call from what's his name? Kevin. What's Tivin? Tevin, the guy who
yeah,
is
Tevin, something like that.
the contact he's meeting on the Ring of Kafrene. Like, that is
His
where,
arm.
yeah, that is where Andor season 2 ends, and he's making his way there. And then I guess if we're following that, Rogue One needs to be 0 BBY. He was trying to find Tevin on the Ring of Kafrene for a fucking year, if we're going by that progression of the years. So I hate that. Yeah,
Except
yeah.
he can't even do that because they say in Andor he's only going to be there for a day and then he's leaving.
Yeah. Could you imagine if he waited there for a full calendar year? I was about to leave.
Sure you were.
I came as quickly as I could. Like, traffic was a fucking nightmare. You wouldn't believe.
All that space traffic.
Oh god, yeah. But that initial meeting with the contact on the Ring of Kafrene really hit different with the benefit of season 2 of Andor. The urgency that Cassian says, "What kind of a weapon?" Like, I need to know. We've had all of that set up
There's
before.
this new context of him, like he's like, this is what Luthen died for. Tell me now.
Yeah, because he already knows that there's a weapon, but he doesn't specifically know what. So yeah, that really hit me, and even just the establishing shots of where we pan down to the Ring of Kafrene, and you have moments where the Imperials are walking among the people, and that sense of oppression across the galaxy, which we've seen, masterfully done with the likes of, Gore and everything else in across the 2 seasons of Andor. It was nice to see that stuff on Jeddah as well, where the Empire are tightening their grip on the population.
Chris, the planet is called Gorman.
Oh,
I
Oh,
think
that's right.
you should apologize.
I'm sorry.
We
Apologize
did
to the
it.
people called Gore. I've just drank a whole
Oh,
bunch of Dan Aykroyd vodka. I'm sorry. Anyway, so yeah, the initial setup of everything I really
it's
appreciated.
yeah. So like I said, I cut this into episodes, and as a result, because of the whole. Well, actually, no, I didn't even end up needing to do this, but I did it anyway. I moved the prologue to the beginning of the second act, just because the middle is so much shorter. Which,
Mhm.
yeah, that's how Act Two works, but still.
Yeah.
Um, but opening on Andor, like it makes it feel like he is the main character still, and and Andor had a habit of focusing on other characters.
Mhm.
Excuse me. So having it, so it didn't feel like it didn't feel out of place. It didn't feel like this is the odd man out. This felt like a genuine continuation of the show, stylistically, because this had sets. This was filmed for bloody hell, for real.
Are you okay? Are you gonna make it through
I
this?
think so. Maybe.
Yeah, but I think the issue with this is that, well, Jyn Erso is quite clearly the main character in this, which is weird right hot off the heels of Andor, because we've spent all this time with Cassian as the main character. It's weird coming into this where you have Jyn Erso. And I wouldn't even be against that if Jyn Erso was an interesting character, but she so isn't. She's an absolute fucking nothing burger of a character. And when she's leading the troops at the end and
Totally heard
delivering,
somebody else describe her like that. The
she,
amount of times you use that phrase.
I think it's definitely more of an American saying, but I quite like it. So I'm getting the mileage out of that phrase while I can. When she's delivering speech to the rebels at the end and sort of rallying them all up, and they're all listening really earnestly to what she has to say, I'm like, you haven't put your fucking tenure into this rebellion, love. Like the
Yeah,
amount
it
of
does feel
distrust. Yeah, the amount of distrust that we've seen people within the rebellion, among the rebellion, different factions, whether it's people mistrusting Luthen or Saw Gerrera because he's an extremist or whatever. This random chick shows up, the daughter of someone who's helping build the fucking Death Star, and they all just take to her and they're like, "Oh yes, Jyn, tell us more." She's such a vacuous character. There are no layers to her at all. And it really bothers me that Cassian and the rest of them are listening so intently into her. It's just because this was made at a different time under different circumstances. It is a weird progression, I think. Now I was trying to make this okay in my brain, or sort of retcon it into my brain as to into sort of like Andor's continuity, thinking that, well, you have Andor, who starts off as this very much a supporting character who's thrown into this rebellion. He doesn't want any part of it initially, and over the course of the 2 seasons becomes drafted into it and becomes one of the key players in there. That having him almost pass the mantle on, pass the baton on to someone else, you have this person who's in a very similar situation to what he was in, who, always kept his head down, didn't care about the empire, was just trying to get through life, or, just keep on living as best as they can. Bringing that person into the fold, it is almost like an audience proxy character, where we're in the shoes of Jyn Erso coming into this rebellion again. And it's nice that Cassian can offer that almost like mentor role because he's gone through the same thing. I was trying to okay it in my head that way. And I think it works that way, but we spend so much time with Jyn, and I got nothing for Jyn. I think she's just a terribly written character. Nothing against the actress. I think Felicity Jones is a decent actress, but thankfully, like, can you remember the lines they originally had for her in the first couple of trailers that mercifully got cut from the final film?
you're all rebels. I rebel.
I'm sorry, that line is just cancerous. Like, I'm so glad that was removed.
That line had me convinced she was an Imperial spy.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it no, we shock my monkey. We looked this up last time.
Yeah, Shot My Monkey says it's 1 BBY up until the battle itself. 2025 will still be 2025 up until 11:59 p.m. New Year's Eve. Furthermore, the Battle of Yavin didn't take place for several days after Rogue One. Luke trained with, and I'm guessing there's going to be a continuation there. We did check this though, didn't we? We checked this. This is canon. And I think this was true as of Legends, although I think the dates were slightly altered, perhaps in Legends. But fundamentally, it stayed the same. That yeah,
yes,
I
no.
guess it's just yeah.
We looked it up last time. There was a 0 ABY and a 0 BBY.
Yeah, 0 BBY. Here we go. I've
And
got Wikipedia. This is canon. 0 BBY before Battle of Yavin, also known as Zero, was a period of time that, together with 0 ABY, made up a single year. And then it just goes on to say other calendars across the galaxy. Yeah,
that's weird. It should be the year leading up to the Battle of Yavin is 0 BBY, and then the year after the Battle of Yavin is 0 ABY. But for some reason, the however many months leading up to the Battle of Yavin in that calendar year is 0 BBY.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's bizarre. It's bizarre to say the least.
So at some point during Rogue One or the last arc of Andor, or however long it takes to get from Scarif to Tatooine.
Mm-hmm.
Happy New Year!
Yeah. Happy Empire Day.
Happy Empire Day. It's Luke's birthday?
I guess so. I guess so. Speaking of sort of jumping around planets, I mentioned this already, but the pacing at the beginning is insane to me. So you have Cassian goes to the Ring of Kafrene and gets the information he needs. That scene, which always struck me as I remember seeing that in Rogue One, thinking I know you have like Han Solo shooting first and things like that, morally grey characters. That's nothing new. But when Cassian shoots that informant, I remember that being like that was slightly unexpected for a character. That makes so much sense now, seeing everything and all the backstabbing and betrayal and, you know, cutting loose ends and everything like that in Andor. That was really great stuff. But then he's just on Wabani with K2 and they pick up Jin. I'm like, whoa, what are we doing here? And that was insane to me how quickly that happened. It really was. Saw Gerrera, I think, benefits from. We didn't even see loads of him though in Andor. I would have really liked more Saw Gerrera, and who knows if we had have got those 5 full series, I'm sure we would have got lots more with him, and maybe see him deteriorate into the almost Darth Vader-like figure that he is in this, more machine than man. But even still, we actually got more scenes with him. I think one of the biggest missed opportunities with Rogue One is that, similar to the prequel films in many ways, a lot of people criticize the fact that we never see Anakin's training and that we just jump 10 years and here we are, brand new actor, essentially a completely different character when we get to Hayden Christensen after Jake Lloyd. And it's the same with...
see that dead star.
Exactly. And it's the same with Jyn Erso in this. We have the prologue where Saw picks her up. We flash forward all these years later, and then we only get a scant few lines to allude to this upbringing that she has. And I'm sorry, but if I'm trying to imagine what an upbringing with Saw Gerrera would be like, she would have a totally different personality. I feel like she'd be a lot more grizzled, a lot more violent, a lot more no nonsense than the sort of, you know, pristine paragon character that she is in Rogue One. I'm not buying it.
How old did she say she was when
16, I think, right?
No, when Galen left.
Oh God, what? How old would she say? She's like probably about 7 years old or something like that.
I thought she was like 9 or 10.
Oh, that's sure. So what? She was raised.
So 6 or 7 years with Saw. Yeah, then she should be.
But then he left her with what was it? A knife and a loaded blaster or something? Did you say?
A loaded blaster and I think some travel rations.
Because people were starting to ask questions and clock onto the fact that she was the daughter of Galen Erso, and that doesn't look good for Saw Gerrera, and it certainly doesn't look good for the rebellion.
The daughter of an Imperial science officer.
Yeah.
Use you.
So the mask, Are we inferring that that's Rhydonium? Because I was kind of watching it with that in my mind this time, and I really like that he just and he's so used to it. He's become so desensitized to it that his skin isn't going all like veiny, and he isn't gasping for air. He relies on this now.
I think it's more likely he has eroded his lungs with Rhydonium, and now
Yeah.
he needs an oxygen tank.
Yeah, no, I agree. I quite like that though. I like that it's still kind of ambiguous though. You're like, oh, he's been blown
It
apart.
could be.
Yeah, he's lost a leg. He's all cyborg now. I think the fact when because it sounds very similar to the Darth Vader breathing sound effect, doesn't it? I remember seeing that for the first time.
No. Yeah, when I first saw it in theaters, I was like, oh, this is the least subtle metaphor for becoming your enemy I've ever seen.
Yeah. And he's like, there's not much of me left. I just assumed that was part of it. And I think that was the original intention. But now we have Andor Season 2. There's a bit of a grey area there. Maybe he's huffing some Rhydonium. Maybe he's got like a gas canister lodged in there somewhere. Yeah, Brinsley says she'd be huffing that Rhydo for sure. Yeah, he'd have a whole initiation for Jin so what was it like? I was in the jungle and
of Onderon.
That's it. Yeah.
This is my sister.
Oh, we got bath time. He says, "Big up the lads. I've seen up to episode 8 of Andor now. Yeah, it was really good. I liked when they remixed the protest song. Yeah." Brinsley says episode 8 is wild. As long as we're talking about episode 8 of Andor season 2, not The Last Jedi, because I don't want to make that a whole thing. I know you probably do. I don't want to make that a whole thing. Not tonight.
I think Darth Revan wants us to.
Yeah. Darth Revan's chomping at the bit for us to have another argument tonight. Bor Gullet is still weird. I needed a scene in Andor season 2 of how maybe if we'd have got those 5 seasons, we would have seen a whole side story of Saw Gerrera acquiring the Bor Gullet. It's still we'll know the truth. Although, I mean, that still leads to nowhere. He's like, unfortunately, the side effect of using the Bor Gullet on someone allows the prisoner loses one's mind, which is true as of about 5 seconds, and then he just remembers everything, and then he's back to good old Bodhi Rook after that. So
he's the pilot.
Yeah. We do see him do a little bit of piloting. He co-pilots with K2 on Edu, I think. If that's right.
Yes, he does. Yeah, no, he does. He and K2 take the transport shuttle to Scarif. Which, by the way, do you know how Scarif got its name?
I don't.
Gareth Edwards went to Starbucks, and he said his name correctly when they wrote it on the cup. Take a wild guess what they wrote.
They wrote Scarif.
They wrote Scarif.
That's amazing. I didn't know. No, I didn't know that.
That's Gareth, and they wrote Scarif. And he had just been like, they just been like, hey, I've been naming all the things. You need to name something. You name the planet at the end of the movie. That's the big battle. That's what's going to be remembered. Mm-hmm. And then he went to coffee to go get coffee so we could think about it. It was like, what's that?
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna.
By the way,
God, sorry.
No, just have it moving the prologue to the second episode. It really makes Jin that is the Jin episode. Your Andor is still your main character in episode 1. Jin's given a lot of focus because she's one of the main characters of this arc, but with this new way of watching it, it really does still feel like you're watching Andor. It's really good. And then I'm assuming if this were an episode and it had a name, it would probably be called Rogue One, the last one.
Yeah,
because it's about the crew. That one.
I was going to offer a different comparison here to another TV series, and it seems a bit unfair for me to do this because I've actually never watched this TV series, despite the fact that I've heard it's fantastic. But go with me on this because maybe you have. The whole 2 really good seasons of Andor, and then sort of finishing it off with a movie that's kind of rushed and has to, condense everything down. It's very similar to Firefly and Serenity. how that they clearly had a bigger story planned, and then they had to try and get everything done in Serenity at the end. And watching Rogue One again, I had to tether my expectations a little bit in that I know that this is more of a commercially viable film. It's a very different tone. It's a very, very different pace to Andor. And the way that I have to do the mental gymnastics in my head, because I'd gladly say that Rogue One is part of the Andor stuff. The writing quality definitely drops off. I think that's fair to say, between Andor and this. But still, I think it
Hey,
has
you
its
better
place.
watch yourself.
Oh, we'll get onto those cameos. Oh boy, the member berries in this film are
On the
unreal.
boo boo.
But I'd still say that Rogue One has its rightful place at the end of all of this. And the mental
Definitely.
gymnastics that I did is that at the end of Andor, at the end credits of the final episode of episode 12, it caps off with the John Williams music, sort of tying it back into the movie realm of things, like the end credit Star Wars music, which I thought was a really nice touch. This movie is towing the line between a lot of that Andor stuff, but feels like it's making its way more into the mainstream blockbustery Star Wars type movie. It's very much that bridge film. And then after Rogue One, boom, we're into our commercially viable worldwide phenomenon Star Wars movies. So we've gone through like the really intense, almost Game of Thrones level intrigue stuff, slowly into the more commercial stuff, and then boom, we're into our main Star Wars canon. So that's how I've sort of processed it in my mind. I don't know if you've done a similar thing, and I shouldn't do that because I should still review Rogue One on its own merits, and I totally agree with that. But this is just me trying to place this in the timeline of everything that we've had now, I guess.
Well, everything should be reviewed on its own merits, but it also needs to be reviewed in the merit of its intended context, which
Yeah.
now is among Andor, which because Andor was created with Rogue One in mind, and so Rogue One it does have an effect on Rogue One, and that it needs to be considered.
Mm-hmm.
Rogue One on its own still especially if you're planning on showing it to somebody, then yeah, Rogue One on its own is definitely still a factor here, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it's definitely you can't you can't weigh one over the other. You have to acknowledge Andor now.
Yeah. It just really makes me sad that we never got Tony Gilroy's Rogue One. Like I would have loved that. So it really was a case of too many cooks in the kitchen. You have Gareth Edwards, you had Kathleen Kennedy or the studio or whoever it was, Lucasfilm, coming down saying, no, we need to make some changes to this. That probably accounts for the fact that a lot of the shots in the first few trailers are entirely different. They reshot and reworked the ending. I can't remember the exact percentage of the film that got reworked. I know that Solo was pretty much the entire film. It was like 90-something% of that. They basically shot 2 films for Solo, I think. I don't think the percentage was that high for Rogue One, but it went through a lot of changes, and those are very evident, I would say, in the final product still. And Tony Gilroy came in to patch the script up and change some things. So maybe those are the aspects that we're talking about, how you have, because I think Cassian's original scene was meant to be just at the briefing where Jin's brought in with Mon Mothma and Cassian was going to be introduced there. Maybe Gilroy did add those morally grey aspects at the beginning, which we see a lot more of.
It does explain the exposition he gives about the Death Star.
Yes,
if that was meant to be his first scene. Speaking of the ending, though, with all the extra stuff that was shot, you can really see, if you know what to look for, you can really see where things have been cut and added. Like when they're like, "What's that building?" and then he's like, "Oh, that's the tower. That's the communications tower." Cut away. That's where they store all the data.
Mm-hmm. There's other things as well, where they break into the Imperial barracks and you have all the troops marching out, and then there's like an abrupt cut. I was like, there was going to be more there. The stuff on the battlefield. There's this one shot where this rebel pilot crashes onto the ground, and we start to see this wave of troops moving across the beach, and then it abruptly cuts as well. And I'm thinking, there's probably more there. Maybe that was where they made their daring race across the beach, weaving in and out of the legs of the AT-AT walkers. It's fascinating. It really is. And I would love to see that original cut. But here's the thing. I don't even know if an original cut exists. This hashtag release the Snyder cut, release the Gareth Edwards cut or whatever, or the Tony Gilroy cut. I don't think it exists, personally.
According to Gareth Edwards, it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I get the impression that he's not too happy with the film because his vision became compromised and it got changed and almost entirely reworked at the ending. But even still, just as an outsider looking in, and I'll never know the whole story behind it, I still think it works. Some things that we know for certain was that, as you mentioned, the data tower and the place where they actually have to transmit it were going to be two different places. Which in the final film were condensed into the one tower. That just makes sense to me. I think if you split the buildings apart, it gets very video gamey at the end. It's like, well, we need to do this, but before we do this, we've got to do this. But before we can do this, we've got to align this antenna to do this. And it compartmentalizes all of these different little mini tasks to get to where you need to. And I think if you just threw an extra one in there of now we've got to get across to a different building, just condense it down a little bit. I don't have a problem with that personally.
Speaking of video gamey tasks, speaking of video games, wow, the senator from Terrace is old in Andor.
Remind me of that character again, the senator from
the black chick.
Oh, yes, yeah.
She's I was gonna so much older.
So did did you have that same thing with any other characters in this? Because when you watch it in order in real time, aging is a thing like that.
Looks totally different.
Okay, so yeah, let's talk about. Okay, so Jimmy Smits
is younger.
Jimmy Smits, yeah, definitely. Jimmy Smits, and then we got the new actor in Andor Season 2. And in Andor Season 2, we've talked about this in our reviews. A lot of people have talked about this, how we had that one quick cameo from the new actor just to sort of cushion the blow a little bit, get people acclimatized to this new actor. And then we got him fully in episode 9 in the final arc. Watching this in sequence now, it's kind of funny because they sort of do the same with Jimmy Smits again, don't we? There's the bit where he dramatically emerges from the shadows to reacclimatize you that we're back to Jimmy Smits now. Yeah,
they must have fixed the scheduling problem for this episode.
And he's wearing like the same cape with like those 3 metal things. I don't know if that's a badge or it looks like, I don't know, pens or Christ knows what they are. Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting to see that in how you can tell that was just the Member Berries moment, really, and you get the dramatic like music when he like shows up, but it kind of works now that we're back to the original actor. Yeah. Krennic's a lot older, but I didn't mind it. I just kind of went with it. I'm used to watching things like Better Call Saul, which is made however many years after Breaking Bad, and they didn't try and de-age anyone.
You haven't watched Better Call Saul, have you?
I need to watch the final 2 episodes, and I'm done with it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But yeah, they don't.
It's better than Breaking Bad.
I need to go back to Breaking Bad, but I may agree with you there. It does very much just become it ceases to maintain its own identity, I think, and it very much becomes Breaking Bad, the prequel, by the end of it in the last couple of seasons. But I think it was always going to. I think it was always going to.
Yeah,
happen. It was
never going to not do that. Yeah.
But they don't try and de-age anyone, and you kind of go with it. And yeah, I think this was fine.
That do that.
Mm-hmm. I didn't think Cassian was wildly distracting or anything like that.
No, they did a good job making him look younger in the last episodes. So the transition. Yeah.
Speaking of making people look younger, can we talk about CGI Tarkin and CGI Leia? How well do we think that's held up after 10 years?
CGI Tarkin is not good. It wasn't great back then. It's still not great now. Somehow Leia's gotten better.
I've never had a problem with Leia. If I was really looking out for it, maybe, and there probably is a bit of uncanny valley there. In fact, there almost certainly is.
There's a fantastic deep fake that Shamuka's done.
Yeah. I think they just make her skin look a lot more natural. There's the sort of like blush that she's got on from A New Hope, and it just
Yeah, no,
yeah,
they've CGI'd makeup onto her. It's actually kind of impressive.
yeah. There is that whole moral quandary of whether we should resurrect past actors with CGI and things like that. And the thing is, with Rogue One, I've always stood by this, even the first time I watched it. They didn't need to do it. If you wanted those characters in there, I completely understand that Tarkin needs to be a part of this. I'm aware of where the time where it's set before A New Hope. I get that, but there's ways that they could have done it where it could have had more of a legacy. It could have endured a lot better. It could have held up better over time, is what I'm saying. There's the bit where he approaches Tarkin and he's looking out of the window at the construction of the Death Star, and he's just got his back to him, and there's a faint reflection of his face in the glass. They could have just left it at that. Or if you wanted a full-blown conversation, I'd have been fine with a CGI Tarkin if it was over a hologram. The thing is, you could tell that Disney was so pleased of this and were really selling it that they just kept doing more with it. And I think it's the lighting as well. His skin is very waxy. It's very shiny, the way the light
No,
bounces
no,
off his
I
head a
think they
little bit.
nailed the skin. I think they made him look a little skeletal, but the skin, I think that the diffusion of light in the skin, I think works really well.
I think it just looks like he's coated in Vaseline, whereas a lot of other people in that same scenario, in that same scene, don't. And I don't know if that is just CGI textures on face or the light. I feel like they went a bit crazy with the lighting on him, which singled him out. And I think it's just the motion. I think it's the way the head tracks on the body just feels ever so slightly off, just a little bit sometimes.
You know, definitely there. But you know what I've said about Owen in Attack of the Clones, how I'm not saying this is what happened, but if this is what happened, it does explain why things are the way they are.
Mm-hmm.
How if I'm not, there's nothing that says overtly that George Lucas forgot about Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru when he was making Phantom Menace. But if he did, his introduction of them in Attack of the Clones makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I don't think he did. I think it was. I
No, no,
think
no. I know. It really could go either way. But so hear me out. I'm not saying this is what happened, but it does sort of make sense. It does line up if it did. You have two Star Wars story movies, each one sort of pitching what are we going to do for the not specifically this, but what this ended up being. What are we going to do for the Mandalorian season 2 finale? Do we recast or do we do the CGI face?
mm-hmm.
Rogue One did better. They went with the CGI face.
Mm-hmm. Well, they've kind of resided themselves to that now, haven't they? There's the thing with the whole CGI. You know, we've got to maintain these actors in the roles that they're in.
Yeah, with Book of Boba Fett now. Yeah, no, they've really they've set this standard now, and it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Now,
let's hope an interesting strategy, Colin. Let's hope it works out for them.
yeah, absolutely. Um, but one thing I do like about the inclusion and the presence of Tarkin is that, and I alluded to this as well when we talked about Andor, is the chain of command in the Empire whittling down to the ISB. We have Tarkin mentioning about previous security breaches and things like that involving with Krennic, and you're like, oh, this makes so much more sense now. And there is a reason that
Dedra.
Tarkin and Vader and certainly Palpatine would not be all too impressed with Krennic at the moment, and he's got to pull it out the bag. He's got a lot to prove now to maintain his seat on the council, and just seeing that pecking order, how in Andor, Krennic was top dog. Krennic was the one that everyone else at the ISB answered to. And it's the line from Phantom Menace, there's always a bigger fish. When you get to this one, he feels like a little worm on a big fucking hook, because you've got Tarkin, and then we get the introduction to Vader. What did you think to that? Now we've had the world of Andor, and I know you've got the prequel trilogy before it, but if we're just looking at this sort of contained in the world of Andor, how everything's very ground level, everything feels very grounded, not really much talk of a Jedi or the Force or anything like that. Watching it all in progression, right up until the point you get a Darth Vader introduction. And obviously with the ending, which could be quite key jangly. I can see both sides to it, where you've got Vader carving through everyone in the corridor. How did that feel to you now, watching it in sequence that way? Did you think it felt very godlike and larger than life? Like, what the fuck is
Yeah,
happening? Like, who's this?
it felt like it felt like part of the transition to the bigger story.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like we've been for the past 2+ seasons, we've been dealing with the Imperial bureaucracy, and then at the end we're like, just a reminder, the Empire is run by evil wizards.
Mm. Yeah.
Who
I
do not care about the politics. They use the politics, but they will ignore the politics when it matters. Which we were talking about Tarkin being punished for something. What was it again? You were asking me, like, why would Tarkin have been punished for
was it where he
something?
killed so many Gormans by just parking his shuttle on top of them? Like, why wouldn't have that got out to the media a lot more? Or
yeah, the end, whatever it was, I just remember the answer I gave was because there are maybe 24 people in the Empire who are at his level, and 2 people in the Empire who are above him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like, yeah,
I
that's
think
how the Empire works. And those 2 people who are above him don't give a shit about the politics.
Mm-hmm. I've always loved the introduction to Vader in this. You got to remember, when this came out, a lot of people, myself included, I fell victim to this. The Red Letter Media videos, which I still do get a kick out of, and I do agree with a lot of their points. The prequel bashing, the prequel hating, and how the last time that we saw Vader was him whining about Padme and all of that scene and everything like that. That Rogue One made Vader scary again, and I absolutely love his introduction on Mustafar. I don't know who that crusty old white guy is, who I thought was the Emperor when I first saw the trailer, when he's like, Director Krennic has arrived. I think he's in
one of the
300.
Lego movies.
Oh, is he?
He's that character. Not the one after. There's the holiday special, and then there's the Halloween special. He's in the Halloween special because Vader's castle is now a museum of the dark side.
Of course it is.
And you get a short about the origin of Kylo Ren, and it's not lore accurate, but it has all the lore accurate characters, which is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. That's I've told you about this, where it's like, where the Knights of Ren are like, oh, leave him, Ren, he's such a Kylo. What's a Kylo? It's a coward. And then he ends up fighting Ren, and then they're like, yeah, you're just a Kylo. It's like, yeah, keep calling me that. I'm starting to like it. What is happening? But that story is being told by that guy in the hood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And Poe is there, and he's like, that's not what happened.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely love the cinematography in Rogue One. There are some beautiful fucking shots and shot composition.
It's beautiful.
Yes. And seeing the silhouette of Vader as Krennic's waiting for him, and the music's building up. You got the slow Imperial march, fog machine at the ready, because of course you've got to have the dramatic entrance. I think
that's the volcanic smoke.
Yeah, they do fuck the voice modulator up, though. I've always had a problem with that. And
it's just that he's old.
Well, just
because he sounds like that in Rebels too.
The modulation on the voice just sounds off. But yeah, the inflection's not quite there, and it's because James Earl Jones, nothing against the guy, you know, he was getting on when he was still doing the voice of Vader at this point. The bit where he goes like, an Imperial city directly attacked, like it
openly attacked.
Yeah, the inflection's not quite there. It's a weird way that he says certain things, but it still carries weight to
destroyed. An Imperial garrison openly attacked. Something like that. I don't know. I can do it better. I can do it better. This is how he should have done Tarkin than Vader. Where the original plans for this station are kept there, are they not? That's how that line should have been. The original plans for the station are kept there.
Yeah.
Why does he say it like that? Why does he mumble? The original.
Yeah, he'd roll the shit out of those R's, wouldn't he, Peter Cushing? Love that man. The jury's still out on whether I like the Vader lightsaber scene. I
I
think,
have a I have a
yeah.
similar scene. Your feelings of that scene, I feel about the Hammerhead Corvette scene.
Okay, okay, we'll get onto that when we get onto the Battle of Scarif, because yeah, we got a lot to discuss with that. I remember when I first saw this Vader scene, like everyone, I went fucking nuts for it. Everyone was like, "Oh my god, seeing Vader in his prime and the way he's carving everyone and forcing everyone." I got suckered in by the member berries, and then over time, we've seen them try and chase after that again and again and again. It feels like we always have to have that hallway fight scene now with someone carving
We've
through
had
people.
2 or 3 since. Like,
Yeah,
let's calm down.
and
I
I
want to
get.
give one to Kylo in episode 9, but that's just because I needed to have him fighting in a hallway anyway.
And I get the whole thing of it's poetry, it rhymes, but after a few stanzas, it's like, okay, this is just getting derivative now, and I'm kind of over it. So I don't know how I feel about it. I know we've argued about whether we feel the ending sort of retcons or contradicts A New Hope. I've always had a problem of Vader
I want
making
to do an
his way.
analysis.
I've always had a problem of Vader carving his way to the landing platform where he's standing in the literal vacuum of space, watching the Tantive 4 fly away. And then in A New Hope, Leia still tries to lie to him. And he's like, listen here, bitch.
Do you
I was at the
expect her
Battle
to
of Scarif.
do you expect her to tell the truth?
No, I expect her to die. But I
No,
just
you
thought
expect her to lie. It was
I,
right
I
there.
I didn't need Leia to be present at the Battle of Scarif. If she was
No,
stationed
no.
somewhere away from the fray where Vader wouldn't know her involvement but suspect that she probably has something to do with it, that's fair enough. So I do have a problem with it. I remember when the first time I watched it where we have Vader's line where he's like, prepare a boarding party, and he walks away. I was like, oh, okay, because yeah, okay, I get it, cool. And that's all I needed.
And then
But then we have so much. Now the score, Michael Giacchino's score is fucking great to this. The guy had a month and a half to work on the music to this, and I absolutely love the music to Rogue One. Some of my favorite tracks, mostly towards the end of the score, I will say. Your Father Would Be Proud, leading into Hope, I think it's called, which is the
it
very
is called
Jewel
Hope.
of the Fatesy operatic stuff with a. It's great shit. It's some really really good stuff. Little light motifs that are a little bit too reminiscent of his Star Trek score, the J.J. Abrams movies. Here and there, you can definitely hear it. Maybe that's just Giacchino's thing, but the fact that he only had like a month and a bit to create a full score to this film, I think it's an incredible score. It's very different hearing the music to something like this, which feels much more akin to the John Williamsy style music. When in Andor, we really don't get that. We get Mon Mothma getting down and getting crunk to some like galactic dance music, and yeah, the tone's very very different. Let's get to some comments. Bath Time says, I cannot believe watching Andor. It's the same universe where someone got stabbed with a lightsaber and was back on their feet by the end of the episode, ready to ride a whale to fight some zombies. I wonder which TV
Yeah, it's
show
the
you're
same.
talking about there.
It's the same universe that had Ewoks and child murder.
Yeah, I wouldn't even put those in the same category as space whales and fucking zombie stormtroopers, but yeah. And wolves, because Dave Filoni has a fetish for wolves.
He loves his wolves.
He probably fucks a wolf. He probably has a wolf that he fucks next to his blow up doll of Ahsoka every night.
I gotta point some out. That was Lucas.
What?
Lucas was the one who was like, "Why don't we make her? You should have her in something revealing."
Who
Because
are
he
you
was
talking about here? Ahsoka?
Ahsoka.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's Dave Filoni that's kept her around and essentially made a Gandalf the fucking White and resurrected her about 2 times and is going to make her the fucking daughter, the
Wait.
princess of light of everything.
Oh yeah, that's totally where she is going. That is 100%. I have little doubt that's where her character is going.
Lucas wanted her to die during Order 66, which makes sense, but Filoni was like, "No, I don't think I will," and here we are.
But Lucas was still there when was still working on it in season 5, which means he did approve of her leaving the Order before Order 66.
Yeah, but he wanted her to die during Order 66, but Filoni said no and vetoed it. Bath Time says, "Is
No, he
Andor the
didn't.
character?"
He doesn't get vetoes. Let's be fair. If Lucas is still working on it, he doesn't get vetoes. Yeah, do the I interrupted you face like we weren't still in the middle of something. Continue.
Bath Time says, "Is Andor the character with the most screen time in Star Wars?"
No, he does. He's not
Well,
even the character with the most screen time in Andor.
but we do have 2 full seasons with considerable runtimes to them, and then he does get a 2-hour movie as well. I don't know. You'd have to go. Well, you've got 3. Well,
Din
actually, no,
Djarin.
because you got like Han Solo is in 4 movies and a cameo in
No,
9.
no, he's in 5 movies and a cameo in 9.
Do you count the holiday special?
No, I'm counting Solo.
Harrison. I'm talking about Harrison. Are we talking about actors or the
No.
character?
He says is no. He said Andor is the character with the most screen time.
Oh, I thought we were going by actor there. Okay.
No.
And I've
Because
also
that
just
means
wiped.
because then it's like Obi-Wan is 2 screen times.
I think that's just the fact that I've sort of mentally wiped Solo out of the continuity in my head. I just completely forgot about it.
It's just a long episode of Clone Wars.
Raiden says, "I found it weird that a KX gets one-shotted on Jeddah. We see them take multiple blaster bolts
Yeah,
on Gorman in Andor with no damage taken." Let's talk about that because I think that is worth talking about. Now, I have seen a
it's worth it for
post.
the bit.
I have seen a post which justifies this, and here's the differentiation: the
Right
KX
here.
droids that have the yellow on them, which K2 has, are the sturdy ones that can take blasters or deflect blasters in Andor.
Uh,
The one that gets one-shotted has red, which means that they cheaped out, maybe due to budget limitations imposed by Emperor Palpatine, meant that they didn't get this. It's bullshit. It's all bullshit,
here's
and that's a
so
problem with Andor. That's a problem with Andor right there, setting that up.
yeah, that is technically a problem with Andor. I approve of that because that color thing is clearly just there in Rogue One to be like this one is K2.
Yeah.
However, there is gonna be a difference between the reds and the yellows, even if it's because I mean there's a difference between the stormtrooper helmets in A New Hope versus the other two.
Mm-hmm. They wanted their Terminator bit, didn't they? In episode 8 of season 2 of
They did.
Andor.
That's
And they
yeah.
achieved it, and it was great. But I remember watching it at the time, especially when we get to the final arc as well, where K2 is just taking blaster fire and it's just bouncing off him. And then I've seen people doing some mental gymnastics saying, well, that was just a blaster. It's not a proper stormtrooper issue rifle. But and I know that Jyn Erso does pick up a stormtrooper. I think that's the one that she shoots that K droid with. I think she takes a sidearm or a rifle off one of the
No, it's the
stormtroopers.
oh yeah, no, it's an E11.
Yeah. And then obviously K2 just gets absolutely peppered with gunfire at the end. And I will say that as well, that hit a lot harder. K2 was easily the best character in Rogue One as a standalone film anyway. So when you saw him die, people were like, oh, we like the droid character in this. Having just a little bit more screen time with him in Andor really did help set up that movement. I could have gone for more K2 though. That is one of my criticisms of
we all could
Andor.
have.
Yeah, I would have liked
It's a
to
good
have
criticism
seen.
to have to want more.
Yeah, I think how they set their relationship up. I know we disagree on this, but
Oh,
it felt like they needed more time together, and just having one arc with them together just didn't feel like enough to me. I would have liked more of that buddy relationship. Maybe it wouldn't have worked for the serious story they were telling and the atrocities that happens on Gorman. I get it, but yeah, it's just a shame that we had that mostly wasted arc, in my opinion, anyway, at the beginning of Andor. I'm like, oh, I feel like we could have capitalized on so much in those first 3 episodes, but it is what it is. And I think what we get is fine. They do retcon the K2. I think there's a comic book or a book or something that explains what happened to them.
Yeah, that origin story was in a comic, and Tony Gilroy was just like he didn't even read it. He was just like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna.
I don't blame him because he does like bend over backwards to keep everything mostly in canon with a lot of stuff. The fact that he actually paid attention to keeping it in line with Rebels and
And Rogue
the,
One, yeah.
and Rogue One, the OT. Like he did his homework. Like he actually researched stuff. He read through stuff. But I think once such a wealth of material comes out, and side stories and whatnot, it would probably become fucking impossible to try and create any kind of story that hasn't been told.
How about we agree the comics are rebel propaganda?
Sure.
All the
Yeah.
comics are rebel propaganda. So you can tell yourself that's what happened. So they really wanted to scare the shit out of the Empire. So they're like, what if Luke, Leia, Chewie, and Han all used lightsabers?
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Brinsley
Because I know
says
you hated that.
Basil Oregano.
Also,
He's
Bath Time asked something about Fortnite.
I'm getting there. I'm working my way through them. Gary said, "Is it
Just more
possible
above
that KX
scrolling up. All right.
blaster-proof?" Gary says, "Is it possible that KX blaster-proof body armor needed replacing after getting rammed into and damaged at Gorman?" It's a possibility. It's a possibility.
Maybe.
Bath Time says Better Call Saul is very good when it's Lalo and the cartel stuff. The law parts are less interesting to me.
I love the law parts.
Brinsley says I think CGI Leia is worse.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Bath Time says, any thoughts on Darth Vader finally joining Fortnite? They've been sued, haven't they? I think I recently saw. Was that today I saw on the news or something?
Yeah. The Screen I think it's the Screen Actors Guild is suing them for not paying anyone to be Vader because the computer just created a voice approximation of what it thinks Darth Vader sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
And so because there's no one getting paid for this, they're like, yeah, no, you can't do that. And so they're suing them, and we'll see what happens. I feel like if they lose, they could still like a deal would need to be they need to pay Disney money, and then as well as the James Earl Jones estate. But the rights to be an AI have been signed off by James Earl Jones. Like they could just literally not just, there's a process, but they could do that theoretically. Also, he's racist.
I think
Did you hear about this too?
What, James Earl Jones?
No, Vader in Fortnite, the AI.
Oh, yes.
It took like 20 minutes for it to start saying racist shit.
Yeah.
It said like Spanish is a language favored by smugglers and spice traders.
I think the game is trying to crack down on people trying to bend it to their will, and they punish you in game if you get caught saying any racist or whatever kind of stuff. But people are people, and they will find a way around it. Of course they will. And here's the thing: like, yes, James Earl Jones' estate did sign off, and I don't know whether he did personally or his estate did, that they could continue to use his voice afterwards. Now he probably thought, oh yeah, if someone wants me to play Darth Vader in an upcoming film or a TV show, sure. I don't think he had Fortnite in mind and Vader saying racist shit, which is really, really fucking funny. It is funny, but it's, if you sign the rights away, I don't know what legal ground they're going to have. It's the intention behind it, I suppose, but yeah. But this is showing the gray area. This is the sticky area of this kind of stuff, of actors signing their likenesses away or their voices. This kind of shit's going to happen, and it's going to happen more, I think. Yeah.
I don't know. Should we say, we're fan editors and we're going to use voice AI? Should we say something like about that? Like, let's not beat around the bush. We're going to.
Yeah.
Yeah. The threat to people's jobs is very real. And it's like Hollywood needs to have restrictions about this, and I'm very glad that that SAG is taking measures to ensure that it does. And I feel free to call me a hypocrite for this. I totally get it. I think as fan editors, considering we already fall into a legal gray area, we also sort of fall into an ethical gray area here. We're creating something that is completely free to we are accessing like a quantum superposition, a different quantum superposition for what we're editing into creating this sort of what if scenario for what if Rogue One came out after Andor as an episode of Andor? What if what if the Black Arrow was an arrow? Things like that. Just it's these these how you know what? Somebody already described this perfectly. It was in the comments of a mod for Morrowind called Name Voices of Vardenfell. And it perfectly is like, this is what AI should be used for. Free things that could not exist otherwise. Because the Voices of Vardenfell is a mod made to take what little voice acting for Morrowind exists and completely voice the game. And it's about 60% of the way through. And I have worked very hard to not. Okay, it hasn't been that hard. For about a year and a half, it was really hard to not play Morrowind. Now it's kind of easy, but I am when I play Morrowind, it's gonna be with voice acting, either from Skywind or from this mod. We'll see what comes first.
Here's the thing. So, like, Brinsley brings up a great point here and says, I'd rather have old James Earl Jones than an AI voice. And I think the difference is stark. Even with old James Earl Jones, I think it was just a modulator thing. And yes, he does have an older voice, but I do think just like the intonation on the actual Vader modulator was just off when they did Rogue One. When you hear the voice of Vader in Kenobi, it's noticeably AI. And I think the thing that you lose with that is that you don't have human actors, making real-time choices in how they choose to say a line. In AI, it's all an algorithm. And I do think that the AI technology is going to get better. We're seeing it getting better by every month, every year.
Fortnite Vader is doing a really good job. I haven't heard any weird like cadence, although it has been pretty similar to each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like the stuff in Kenobi, it was all over the place. You could kind of hear how it was all spliced together. It was like, "I will attack you, Kenobi," and it was like you could almost
come back to destroy me, Obi-Wan.
You could almost, in your mind, if you know Star Wars well enough, you could almost hear where they took those certain lines from, of which scenes from the film, and spliced it all together. Yeah, I think it is going to get better over time, but it is that moral quandary, and I would rather have an actor making those decisions. That being said, I am being a fucking hypocrite here, because when I come to do some of my fan editing projects, including the Hobbit update, I'll be using voice AI in there from deceased actors. I'll openly hold my hands up to that, but it is in what we do with fan editing. It is like that what if scenario. Would I want to see this?
I have a rule.
Yeah.
That's why I have rules for this. You're using the deceased actors who were alive when it was filmed.
Mm-hmm.
I would not use AI footage of Carrie Fisher for episode 9.
Mm-hmm.
I would for 7 and 8.
Mm-hmm.
And say I had an idea for 7 that ended up not working out. Maybe I'd use that footage for 9, because that's technically what they did.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, Disney have been doing it, and Disney will continue to do it. Let's dip back to Rogue One then, real quick. So, what are some of the things that we felt were improved by, or worsened with the inclusion of Andor?
Was anything worsened, do you think?
The writing drop off, the writing quality, the complexity of the characters definitely dropped off for me. It feels like, you go through these. Okay, take the bit where they get to Scarif, right? And they need to sneak into the base, and they're all decked out in Imperial garb in order to sneak in. My mind went back to this. Yeah, my mind went back to the stuff on. Oh god, what's the planet called in season 1? Where it's like the dam and the tribes. Aldani, thank you. My mind went back to that arc, right? And just how meticulous they had to be in order to sneak in, and the plan, and they had to keep going over it again and again, and we had all of that build up before we had the payoff. This is just like, oh yeah, we're in. Whoa, okay, like this would have been a 3-episode arc in Andor, and that's not to Andor did drag some stuff out, but it just made the payoff so much more satisfying, and it was really tense and well done for the most part. This is just a race to the finish, it felt like, in any way. And as I say, I know one's a TV show, one's a film made under completely different circumstances, but I think it was the quality of writing and character that did just drop off for me, unfortunately. I'm trying to think if anything else did worsen throughout. I think that's like the main thing for me. I love the build up to the Death Star. I always loved this anyway, even in Rogue One when it came out. But just how terrifying this thing is, and
just conceptually,
people are starting, and the way it's shot as well. I've already talked about the cinematography, but there's some absolutely fucking gorgeous imagery in this of the Death Star. One of my favorite bits is where you've got Galen Erso doing his monologue on the message where Jin's watching it. And he's like, we call it the Death Star. And then it cuts to it. And it's like, and the time will soon come where it will be tested. That secret, like the editing there, and how you've got his message, which is fucking wonderfully acted by Mads Mikkelsen in that scene. He is just giving it his all in that scene. And how you cut into the people in the visors, the whole like, boom, like those guys in the Death Star. You're seeing all of that happen. Even the end as well, where they transmit the messages.
They're thinner.
Yeah. We've got the montage of them prepping the Death Star. I just get a real kick out of it. The bit where Radis or one of the Mon Calamari in the background says like, "Sir, we're detecting a large object coming out of hyperspace," and the music just slowly fades out as we see the Death Star come into orbit. Fucking terrifying. Do you remember the original trailer as well? How you had the Death Star klaxon, the siren, that like that. I was like, oh, like this is. But I think, especially with Andor, which already sets up in the last couple of arcs how terrifying this Death Star is, to have that paid off with the reveal of it and the completion of it in this movie and how it's shot.
Absolutely.
I think not. I don't even think that just Andor has a great impact on Rogue One, but I think also by making the Empire terrifying and building up that threat of the Death Star, it makes the ultimate victory in A New Hope even more celebratory. It's just, thank God we destroyed this thing. Granted, they'd build another one in a couple of years' time, but still, we took out this first one, and it's, yeah, I think it definitely adds to that. Now,
that stuff, the stuff like that, comments about like that, they're perfectly addressed in the Claudia Gray book, Master and Apprentice, which is just this book about Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. There's this one Jedi on the planet who's just like the Jedi representative on the planet that their mission is on. And this Jedi fucks. He's like, I'm not breaking I have no emotional attachment to these women. This is purely for just the sensation. But he has this one line where he talks about, we are Jedi. We don't serve the light because we believe it is going to win some inexorable, final, and complete battle against the darkness. We serve the light because it is the light. And so it doesn't matter that they're going to build another Death Star in 4 years or 3 years or however many years. Those 3 years make it worth it. Destroying the Death Star was the right thing to do. No matter how many more they built. Each ship destroyed is a planet saved.
Speaking of like the Death Star things, I saw a really interesting theory on this, and I've been sending you so many Andor memes the last few weeks.
You have,
and I'm gonna keep doing it because they're fucking great.
Yeah, no,
and it's a wonderful time to be living in, where we have like good Star Wars memes and good Star Wars content again. I'm just gonna enjoy this moment, however fleeting it will be. But I saw an interesting fan theory, and I wanted to run it by you. So Galen Erso was in constructing the Death Star, the mastermind behind it and helping put it together, the man that Krennic seeks out personally to help him get this project off the ground. I saw someone pose the idea that in order to delay the construction of the Death Star to buy more time, it was Galen Erso's idea, saying like, we need this really super rare mineral to like coat the lenses. It's going to be really hard to get. You're going to need to mine quite a lot of this stuff before we actually get it done, which then led to the Gorman massacre. This is all conjecture.
I have heard this theory,
but I don't know. It makes you sort of think about the world a little bit more. Like, oh, well, that horribly backfired.
a couple hundred people. I mean, did it though?
I mean, none of this is in the movie. This is all just
you have the cure for cancer has been discovered, but the only doctor who the cure for cancer in children has been discovered, but the only doctor who understands the cure, is also a pedophile.
Oh no.
Yeah. We're gonna vote. Show of hands. Who wants cancer to ravage children? Okay. You put your hands down. Everyone else raise your hands. You're voting to let Dr. Divine do it.
I thought it was an interesting theory. I was like, I'll bring it up on the stream and see what we think. But
no, it could definitely. Here's the I think if anything, Galen might have saved Gorman a few years, because it was his facility that was like, no, we can't make a synthetic version.
Yeah, we do get that in Andor, don't we? Yeah, that his team have been working on it for the last year and couldn't get anything working.
Yeah, if he found out quickly that they weren't going to be able to do it, but kept being like, actually, it's looking promising.
Yeah.
You could have the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite scenario. So I prefer to think that one.
Yeah.
Happy thoughts, BB-8.
With how quickly the Empire and people within the ISB just waste each other and try and tie up loose ends and everything, it did add a bit more gravitas to the moment where Krennic orders Galen to bring out all of his scientists and line them all up.
Yeah,
with the firing squad. And how everyone in this machine that is the Empire is completely expendable and, slave labor. And then when we don't need you anymore, you're fired, quite literally. There is still that one moment on Edu that is absolutely begging for a Wilhelm scream. And it's the bit where Jyn Erso's climbing onto the slippery platform and she grabs the stormtrooper by the leg and yanks him off. I thought that back in 2016, and I still think it now. A Wilhelm scream needs to be put in there. What's great as well, because we often have this nerdy editing discussions, and I fucking love it, and I absolutely live for that shit. I do. We've had this conversation many times of where we would place Wilhelm screams in the Star Wars films that don't have them, and it's so enriching to find out someone of the same like and mind who has the exact same places. Like you've got the editor's mind, my friend. Like you know where it needs to be. Case in point, Force Awakens, right? Force Awakens, when Chewie detonates the bombs and you have that. Yeah, he flips over the balcony. That's where it is. I watched it on opening night. I was like, it's missing. Why is that missing? You had one job. I'd have actually given us an extra star to the movie if that had been in there for that one scene. Just give it me.
Do we want to talk Battle of Scarif?
Battle of Gareth. Before we do the Battle of Scarif, I wanted to bring this up because I know that this is a heated debate between us. In that,
hang on, wait. If we're gonna call it the Battle of Gavin, then it's the Battle of Gareth.
Sure. One thing that just really boiled my piss when this film came out, and what I've seen people in the spheres talking about this movie still say, oh, I'm so glad that this film exists because it ties up that really massive gaping plot hole from the original Star Wars film, that there happened to be a weak spot on the Death Star. I'm like, it was never that's not a plot hole. Yeah, it was an oversight. It was a weakness.
It's
was
not a plot hole.
It's the missing scale.
It is not patched by this movie.
Yeah,
it's not patched by this movie because what Galen is describing when he says, look, I've laid a trap in the reactor module, one blast, and the whole system goes up. That does not imply that the blast needs to be from an X-wing through this thermal exhaust port that leads straight to the reactor. In fact, what he seems to be just alluding to is a team infiltrating the Death Star with explosives and blowing it up at the core. Probably a suicide mission.
Can it even be reached from the interior, though, where it's situated?
Yeah, haven't you played Battlefront?
It's been a long time ago, but where he's like, you'll need the plans
Yes.
to know the readouts of this, and they look at them and they go, the only physical way into this is to fire a torpedo through this thermal exhaust port in A New Hope, which implies there is
No,
no other way.
an analysis of the plans provided by Princess Leia has demonstrated a weakness. A small thermal exhaust port right below the main port. That does not say that we couldn't do this with an infiltration mission. That's saying we need to the way we need to do this now. This is what we can do with what we have with the time we have. We can attack this thermal exhaust port and potentially blow it up. I don't see a reason that again the reactor is there. You can go to it's a physical place in the Death Star. You can walk to it through door. Probably need to be in a radiation suit or something. I don't know. Wait. Are Kyber's radio? Are Kyber crystals? Never mind.
Do Kyber crystals give you cancer? Jin's just walking around with one slung around her neck.
Oh my god! Is it uranium? Is she just walking around with a uranium or plutonium crystal? Is that why they look like that in The Simpsons?
Was that the smear campaign against the Jedi? Like Palpatine just takes to the Senate and just says that the Jedi were giving younglings cancer from giving them carcinogenic lightsabers.
Oh my god! It would be like the Emperor to villainize nuclear energy.
Yeah,
Nuclear energy's fine, by the way. It's honestly preferable. Big oil.
but yeah,
a lot cheaper energy.
I've never thought about the readouts or Galen's plan being that this could be from an interior assault based on just what we see in A New Hope. I always thought that I've placed a weakness in this, and if a direct blast will take it all down. However, I have placed this at the end of a very, very long, convoluted trench run, complete with fucking gun turrets that line the way, with a shot that's impossible for any human to make unless you happen to possess the Force and use the Force at the precise moment, and you're a space wizard to make this impossible shot. And you also happen to be a great pilot at the same time. I was like, oh, thanks, Galen. Brilliant. Masterful plan. Thank you so much for your contribution. And actually, for me, yeah.
He did his study of kyber crystals, he might have been like, you're gonna need a Jedi.
Oh, thanks, they're all dead. We've got no one. Brilliant.
Yeah, but also
let's get Alec Guinness's old ass in an X-wing.
There very well could have been other exhaust ports too. Again, this one was just the one they had. Okay, so the Falcon will make 0.5 past light speed. So let's assume that means it'll go 1.5 times light speed. And let's assume the Death Star goes 1 light speed, So either the amount of... so when the Falcon stops, either half of the amount of time the Falcon just traveled is left for the Death Star to get there, or 1.5 times as long as the Falcon just took, I think. So that amount of time is how long that they had to analyze those plans.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long that is. I don't fly that way.
It seems pretty quick because they track the Falcon, don't they? It seems like this is like a matter of hours kind of thing. I've always thought the image of, and I know it does, but the Death Star traveling through hyperspace is just always a weird idea in my head.
I never want to see it.
Yeah,
I never want to see it. I want it to just be alluded to. I know it can do it. Do not fucking show me.
Yeah. Bath Time says
Christ.
it patches probably the most unintentional piece of symbolism in cinema. It's such an obvious Freudian image of an egg being fertilized by sperm, but I'm convinced it's unintentional. I think the more intentional one is the opera house scene in Revenge of the Sith, where they're talking about the conception of, you know, the chosen one, and you've got sort of like the sperm swimming in and out of the eggs. I think that's probably more intentional than
That
that
wasn't
one.
unintentional. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, what was I going to say about? I was going to mention something else about this. The Death Star. Yeah, for me, it's just pure like the fantasy trope. It's the missing scale in Smaug's armor, an impossible shot. That's the only place where you can take it down. These big sort of like arrogant villains in fantasy, or you know, whatever, or mythologies or whatever, that have a really insignificant weak spot that's exploited. The Achilles heel kind of thing, and that is the Achilles heel of the Death Star. And I've always liked that you know, evacuate in our moment of triumph, like, you know, we're completely arrogant with this small oversight.
Not really.
Is
You
ultimately
just said
its
it at the
undoing.
exact same time.
And yeah, I
You
just
literally just said it.
what wait what oh
Achilles,
sorry, yeah, Achilles heel basically, yeah.
when you said it,
I didn't even look down at the comments there, but okay.
I happened to like see it. I was like, really?
I didn't even look at the comments until you just
Jinx.
mentioned it.
Somebody owes the other a Coke.
Brizzy says the cum net is really beautiful imagery. Let's just see that again. We need to. There's no cum nets in Rogue One though, which is a shame. And they were really effective. They were really effective. Okay, Battle of Scarif then. If you want to move on to that.
Yeah. So, we talked about earlier, you can really see that that pieces have been changed, rearranged, added. You can see the bandages, adhesive medical strips. And the what do you think of the Hammerhead Corvette?
I've always liked that scene. I've never had a problem with it. I remember people saying that how could a small ship push a Star Destroyer? Like weight has anything to do with anything in space?
No. So weight is a thing in space. Well, no. Okay, that's not true, because weight is mass times gravity, and if gravity is 0, then weight is 0, because anything times 0 is 0. However, mass still exists.
Mm-hmm.
What that means is the engine of the Hammerhead Corvette has to be pushing more tonnage than the mass of the Star Destroyer, which is not impossible.
Yeah. Is it just the one Hammerhead Corvette that slams into it, or do they bring up a few?
Yeah. No,
Yeah. Or is it just the one? I mean,
my
I
problem
think.
with
Go on, sorry. No. Post what you have a problem with first.
My thing, I don't actually have a problem with it. My problem is what that accomplishes. It's similar to your thoughts on the what Galen's work does to the Death Star weakness. Because it's the sign of the Empire's hubris and its folly. Because what could have been done, you may fire when ready. Laser goes through the shield to protect the plans, allowing the signal to go through.
Mm-hmm.
That could have been what happened there.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, we have it's already we instead we have they lower the shields with with the Hammerhead Corvette. That's what we were talking about.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely one of the biggest
awesome.
moments of
it's so cool.
It's one of the biggest moments of spectacle.
And Rebels.
Yeah. I always thought the name was funny. Just Corvette in Star Wars. It's just okay. Is that what Bail Organa was driving around? The red one in Revenge of the Sith. Was that his little space Corvette? Just his speeder.
No, it's
just regular speeder.
No, it's what Leia and Captain Antilles was flying around at the beginning of A New Hope.
Right.
It's a Corellian Corvette.
I know the name.
A corvette is a type of boat, by the way.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I thought it was just a car. I don't
Yeah,
know
that
vehicles. I don't know vehicles.
well,
Anyway.
no, no, no. The car is named after the boat.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I didn't realize it was a boat, is what I'm saying. I thought it was just a car and nothing but a car.
Gotcha.
Anyway,
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
aside, it's one of the biggest moments of spectacle in the film. I think that out of all of the Disney Star Wars films, Rogue One came the closest to having CGI spaceships and vehicles that almost look like they're a model. I don't think
They
the
do.
ships have
Yeah.
ever looked this good. And that moment where it slams into it and it slams into the other Star Destroyer and it all breaks apart looks like they're genuinely like crashing two models
Breaking
into each
apart
other. It looks brilliant.
and just filming it in slow motion.
Yeah, and I think this was I think the third act is what really cemented that Star Wars feeling for me. In that I fucking love the space battle at the end of this. I think it really does come in clutch at the end. Watching it again, and the more
Might
times I
be
went to
the
see,
best.
I still like Return of the Jedi. That still takes it for me. But
Fair.
this could be a close second. Actually, genuinely, it could be a close second. When I went to see this at subsequent viewings, and the more I went to see it, I was like, okay, we've got the slow moments where we're jumping between planets at the beginning and stuff on Jeddah, like okay, and we've got okay, we've got to get through the stuff on Edu and everything like that. But as soon as we start ramping up to this third act, I was like, okay, this is good stuff now. And I think it's still brilliant. I love the designs of the ships. I even like the cameos of Gold Leader and everyone like that because it makes sense that they would be there. The cameos that I
I'm gonna
don't
add
like in this
Porkins.
movie, the slow zoom in on the blue milk is very strange at the very beginning of the film to me.
I
Um,
still haven't noticed that.
haven't you? Okay.
No.
Dr. Evazan and Ponda Baba being present on Jeddah makes no fucking sense. You have to headcanon it where you're like, oh, well, they must have immediately got to a fucking ship and left that planet. I didn't need them in there. And I even rolled my eyes at the fucking C3PO and R2D2 cameo. I hate that so much. Get it gone. It doesn't need to be there. I get that Tarkin needs to be there. I get that, Gold Leader and everything. And I don't know, you want to try and add some more in there. You want to try and get Porkins in there and everything, which, yeah, it would make sense that he's there.
You can't do Biggs. Not you can't do Biggs because he's on Tatooine, and he can't
Hmm.
do Wedge because he says, "Look at the size of that thing."
Yeah. I saw an interesting comment here. That this is going off on a bit of a side tangent here, but at the very beginning, where we see young Jyn Erso, she's got a little doll of a stormtrooper. Is that weird? Is that like having a doll of a Nazi officer?
If you lived in Nazi Germany, it's like having an action figure of a soldier. That's GI Joe.
Because that would
It
infer that
just
they
so
are.
happens that the government is horrible.
Yeah, but Galen would know this at this point, so it's weird that he would get his little girl a dolly of a stormtrooper.
Well, there isn't exactly like a toy store near where they are, and I'm assuming that's left over from Coruscant. Like,
Okay,
it's her
okay,
favorite toy. He's not gonna make her get rid of it because it's fascist. He probably should, but he's not going to because
he
then he's gonna
should.
have to hear about it.
She needs a little wooden X-wing that's carved by Chewbacca's dad in the holiday special,
Oh my god, he does do that. Those are good.
or he needs to be. Oh, I saw a great meme. It was like children at a certain age and they're like absolute prodigies, and it's like Luke at 19 years old and he's playing little vroom vroom sounds with his little ship. He had a stunted
That's
upbringing,
just
okay? I'm not going to hold it against him. He had a
it
very
just
sheltered
isn't
life.
fair. He's very emotional.
Hmm.
I mean, he's 19.
Um, did any of okay? Let's talk about the actual deaths then towards the end of this, because a lot of people went, oh well, they're not in the OT, so clearly all of these characters are lined up for the meat grinder, and they are. And they pretty much dispatch with each of them one after the other right at the end. It's just like an assembly line, like dominoes. You knock the first one, they all fall down. The whole system goes down. Cassian's death, or him getting shot by Krennic and everything that played out after that, him getting the final shot on Krennic. Well, technically, the Death Star gets the final shot on Krennic, doesn't it? If we're splitting hairs,
Yeah,
did that
Tarkin gets the final shot on Krennic.
did that carry more impact for you now, having seen everything that Andor's gone through in order to get these plans and transmitting them? Did that the ending of this movie carry more weight for you now after all of that?
Uh, I mean, I always I feel like what everyone had gone through was already like to a degree implied. You know, he's been in these fights since he was 6 years old. Uh, However, his death, knowing what's waiting for him,
Mm-hmm.
that that was different.
I do still think it's funny when he gets pot shotted by Krennic and he just bounce, 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 and all the music cuts out, and we're just seeing his limp body just bounce off all the. That still made me laugh. I still think that's kind of
Yeah,
dumb.
and like it makes you simultaneously go, "Oh, that fucking sucks," but also, well, he probably survived.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think it's quite interesting, and maybe this is a really, really unfair comparison because it carries none of the same emotional weight as it did in Andor. But the bit where Cyril meets up with Andor and Andor's like, Cassian's like, "Who are you?"
Who
It
I,
reminds me of with Krennic and Jin, where Krennic's just trying
you
to
know
go
who
for.
I am.
It's like, no, I got nothing.
No, I don't. Uh, uh, I had
It's
a
like
vasectomy, so
it's like choose dialogue option, and all the options are dot dot dot. He's just got nothing.
like he's done none of the side quests to clue him. He didn't pick up that one note in Galen's office. He didn't look at the security footage from Jeddah. Um, and he didn't some side quest on Scarif because rule of three.
Yeah, exactly.
But if he did, he would be able to like piece it all together. It's like, you're the kid.
And I do kind of feel bad for him because he's just a. I mean, I don't feel bad for him now having seen him in Andor, so it definitely makes Krennic a lot more villainous. In this, he was just like the lackey. He was just like whatever. And I guess he still is that, but seeing how much of a fucking
He
son of a
did
bitch he is.
destroy Jeddah.
Yeah, no, exactly. But yeah, it definitely Andor gives Krennic a lot more
Arguably
weight,
worse than Gorman.
despite the fact that he's barely in Andor. I think that the scenes that he is in, they did pick them very, very carefully, and it still does the job. But he's just a guy trying to go for a fucking promotion, man. He's worked hard. You've got to give him that. He's tried. It's a cutthroat environment in what he works in, and when he just gets shot in the
Yes, so
shoulder
did
by
Dedra.
Cassian, and he just sort of awkwardly falls to the floor, I'm like, oh, a very poetic death for him. It's great. I've always loved that he is. It's very on the nose. He is destroyed by the machine that he helped to create. I get it, but he's right at the fucking epicenter.
You mean the
Like,
Imperial War Machine?
yeah, like he's right in the line of that laser when it fires. Very nerdy
He's literally, yeah,
question.
no, he's shot by it.
Yeah, very nerdy question here. I think I've mentioned this to you before. The angle in which this is so fucking nerdy. I can already hear myself asking this question and just okay. The angle that the Death Star beam hits Scarif at, would it create a mushroom cloud upwards, or because it's at an angle, would it kind of be off to the side a little bit? It almost looks like it's hit directly straight down at the point. I don't know. It's always weird to me how that looked.
So the point of impact. No. So no. Look at any meteor crash. The point of impact is going to be
Okay.
spherical.
Okay. It's fine. It's my very nerdy question out of the way.
Yeah, no, yes, I understand. I understand.
I've seen other people recontextualizing the ending where he hugs Jin. I've seen people really, really go in depth into this, in that the sister role, the person that he was trying to save, was Jin
Was Jin.
almost. Like that is the role that ultimately becomes fulfilled by Jin. I ain't buying that personally.
Maybe I would accept his relationship with Jin, Vel, and I guess possibly to some degree Mon Mothma are like semi surrogate. Oh, what's her the assistant?
The assistant.
Luthen's assistant.
Oh, Clea.
Yeah, Clea. Like
Mhm.
these are all sort of surrogate sisters of him trying to do right by the sister he lost, but I wouldn't read into it much more than that.
Yeah. There is that scene towards the end of this in the ending montage where, and I've always thought this too, where I think they're in the elevator coming back down the tower after the Death Star's getting ready to ignite, and he and Jin look at each other, and they're very close together in this elevator, and they're sort of
Looks like they're
looking at.
about to kiss.
Yes, and it cuts, and I thought, I wonder if that was going to be like a
Gareth
whole plot
Edwards.
line, and it got cut at the final moment. Because if that had been in the final movie, then that just throws Bix completely to the wayside, doesn't it? When he embraces Jin at the end, I
Yeah.
think it is just, if you're in that situation with someone where you're at ground zero of a nuclear strike and you're about to be engulfed by it, you're just gonna like hug someone through that like shared trauma and everything you've been with.
See, Watchmen and season 1 of The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
In at the end of, well, spoilers for both, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because at the end of Watchmen, when New York is destroyed with the fake Dr. Manhattan blast, you see the guy reading the comic books and the guy who sells the newspapers both standing next to each other, like, oh, and then like they're right before the blast comes out, they hug each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also in at the end of The Walking Dead, when the CDC is about to be destroyed by the oh god, what's the
What is
word?
happening? What the fuck is happening?
I'm trying to remember the word.
Me.
It means like sanitization, except it starts with the DE prefix. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna send you a text tonight. But when that right before that goes off to literally firebomb the whole place to something, decontamination.
Thank you, Connor. Connor
Thank
coming
you.
in clutch right there.
Oh
Thank
my
you.
god. Oh my god. Yes.
I thought you were gonna like
Yes.
burst into a cappella. You were like D
D
D
D D
D. Like, what is happening? I was so confused.
C D E E flat E flat E flat.
Thank you for the music, the songs I am singing. Someone
Holy
knows what that's a
shit! You
reference
got
to.
that.
If people know what that's from, you're part of the tribe.
You actually got that.
Of course they did. I fucking love that movie.
I like the other. I like the second one more.
What was I gonna say? Yeah.
I love when you do find it.
The shot
Connor.
composition at the very end of this with the mushroom cloud. I think I mentioned this in the literally the final scene of Andor season 2. Very very similar to the Bix one. Same sort of temperature and color correction, same shot composition, and sort of beautifully bookended where Bix is seeing that sunrise that Luthen and Cassian and many others will never see.
Never see.
In the context of Andor, though, and I mentioned this, it's that we were expecting certain characters to die. I think they had the sort of Rogue One treatment where, oh, these characters aren't in the OT, so they're all going to die. And we had the same thing with Andor. It's like, well, Partagaz isn't in the OT. Daedra isn't in the OT. Like, or Rogue One, what's going to happen?
Daedra is effectively, like, for all intents and purposes, dead. She's as dead as Kino Lloyd.
Yeah. I think it's weird, though, that having passed on the plans, it's weird we don't see Vel or Clea, considering this was everything they strove towards.
Well, I think that this is the nerd in me. I think we're probably gonna get them in. They are now available to be in comics.
Yeah, I think we could.
Time.
I think we could probably work our magic with an edit as well, maybe, and get at least some reaction shots in there, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely put them in the speech have them be like, oh yeah, she's right.
Bath Time says, good night, lads. It's well past my bedtime. Yeah, it's about to be past my bedtime too, so we're going to have to sign off in just a second. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we can talk about with this that sort of really jumped out to us. I think we've probably covered most of the main talking points for this one. I guess if we're sort of looking overall, is this film strengthened now? Do you prefer this film, or are your opinions on this film still
I definitely
mostly the
like
same?
this film a lot more than I liked it before. I
Would you?
liked it. I liked it well enough. Actually, you know what? I say that. Yeah, no, no. You know what? I stand by that. I like it a lot more than I did before because the difference between a high 7 and a low 7 is fucking huge.
Mhm. What I
Yeah,
was going to
no,
say, would you say then, if
yeah.
someone hasn't seen Rogue One, would you say that Andor is
Watch Andor
mandatory
first.
viewing before this now? Now that
It's
all
as
of them are available.
mandatory as you can. It's as mandatory as you can get without being mandatory.
hmm I think the tone is very, very different, and obviously we've gone 10 years, or almost 10 years, watching this film without Andor, and I think it was just fine. I do personally think, for me at least, I know you're going to disagree with me, that this is by far the best Disney Star Wars movie. It's not a high bar, it really isn't, and I'd probably, after subsequent watches of this movie, Rogue One, I'd probably, would have given it about like a 6 or 7. I think it was sort of like the mid to high end of average.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, I think it's fine. But yeah, there's definitely more threads, which are naturally going to change once you've had a TV show that spends more time with these characters. I just wish we could have got Tony Gilroy's Rogue One. I wish we lived in that reality where we could have got that. Or hell, even 5 seasons. It's gonna, if we
I
get
would
like,
want Tony Gilroy's episode 9.
we get 3 seasons of Mandalorian slop and a Mandalorian and Grogu movie, which is going to be awful. It will be awful. I know I shouldn't judge it until I see it, but we were going to have 5 seasons of Andor, five, hopefully, all conjecture, quality seasons of Andor, which had to get whittled down to 2. It fucking kills me. And we're going to get a second season of Ahsoka and probably a movie. It's going to like all lead up to like an Infinity War style movie where they all come together. And we only got 2 seasons of Andor, but Andor exists. It stuck the landing, and they're not going anywhere. It's perfectly preserved in time. We have 2 wonderful, incredible seasons of television that just so happen to be part of Star Wars, and we have a pretty all right, okay, average movie to finish it off, which is strengthened by the preceding series. So all good stuff.
But with Andor, I would probably say Rogue One is like the second best Disney Star Wars movie.
I've seen people make the argument saying my prequel trilogy is season 1 and 2 of Andor and Rogue One. I've seen people say that.
Interesting. I mean I yeah that it's yeah that if that's how you want to do it,
You have
that do it.
you have allusions to the Emperor. We hear him how bigged up and talked about he is throughout Andor. We get a little hint of him in New Hope. We see a glimpse of him in Empire Strikes Back, and then we get him full regalia in Episode 6. So an argument could be made.
Maybe
Um,
the argument could definitely be made. It's kind of weird, and you know what? I was gonna say it's kind of weird how in episode 3 it just leads directly into the next one, whereas none of the other movies do that.
mhm,
Except the thing is, in episode 3, it leads directly into the next one, and none of the other movies do that.
mhm. Yeah.
So
um,
never mind.
it's the curse of Andor because it's shown how good Star Wars can be and still has the potential to be. And we just ain't ever gonna get it again, or because
It's not going to be for a bit.
After Kathleen Kennedy leaves, it's probably going to go to Favreau or Filoni, one of those two, or a combination.
I
And
don't think either one of us like it's probably going to be somebody
I
qualified
agree.
to be a company president.
I mean, Favreau's made a lot of hits for Disney. He's directed a lot of shit. It wouldn't surprise me. And it just means we're going to get more
Actually,
slop.
I could see Favreau being a suit
We're just going to get more and more slop
chef.
for a long time, which is really
Ooh,
sad.
I want Chef in Star Wars.
But yeah, that
That
was
movie is definitely about the making of Iron Man 2. You know
that
this, right?
I've heard. I've never watched it, but I have heard
Oh,
about
it's
it.
good. It's good. It makes me want some chocolate lava cake, though. Fucking asshole.
I guess that'll do it for our
Fucking
revisit to Rogue One then, almost 10 years after it came out. I'm glad I rewatched it. It was nice, and it's definitely given us much food for thought for possible future editing projects. So watch this space. And speaking of
Definitely.
which,
The dark
JX,
times.
where can people find you, and what are you working on currently?
Oh, it works. I am at youtube.com/JXEditor. I have recently published an edit of the Clone Wars into a single movie to be watched before, after episode 2 and before episode 3. I don't know if episode 3 is still in theaters, but if it is, it's definitely an option. I'm pretty sure 100% of the people who are watching this or have watched this already have heard me say this. Here's what I haven't said. With Rogue One, Andor, and the Kenobi show out, I think it is safe to say that all of the footage for one project that isn't going to be generated by AI, like all the non-AI footage, exists. And I can start seriously working on something similar to that Clone Wars edit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I look forward to see it. I mean, if you can convince me, if you can portray the Kenobi series in a positive light where it doesn't blow ass and it actually
I
really
mean,
works, I am
it's
down.
the worst parts of the Kenobi series are pretty easily removed, except for one thing that I really can't justify, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how other people have done it because it just does not make any sense. It's like Rey swimming.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just
There's just no logical reason that happened. And unlike something similar in the same show, I can't edit around it.
In a post Last Jedi world, there's a moment towards the end of Rogue One where the fleet's making its escape, and then Vader's Star Destroyer comes out, and I just expected if they just timed it right, someone fucking Holdo maneuvers the shit out of Vader.
No. My brother pointed out the same thing after we saw episode 8.
It's like, come on, that moves 1 in a million. Anyway, let us know what you thought of Rogue One. Have you gone back to it, having watched all of the Andor series? Let us know how your perception of this film's changed, if at all. Maybe you hate it more, maybe you like it more, maybe you're still exactly the same. But please do let us know, because I think it's it's a very, very interesting place to be in now that we have all of this stuff that recontextualizes or strengthens a film that's almost 10 years old now, and it'd be great to see if they do more of this stuff to fill in some of the other gaps, as long as it's done well. I'm open to it. Please do consider go on, sorry.
If you guys want to see Rogue One as episodes of Andor, message me, email me with proof that you have Disney Plus or the movie, and I'll shoot you a link.
Awesome. And please do consider subscribing to the channel for more movie reviews, discussions, and live streams. I was actually considering this. What is the next Star Wars project? Is it the Mandalorian and Grogu movie next year, or
it's either that or Ahsoka season 3 or season 2?
Yeah, I think you might be right. I mean, I know there's a bunch of animated stuff coming out. There's probably like another Tales of the Jedi or whatever the fuck it's called.
Oh my god, that's right. Tales of the Underworld just came out, didn't it? And then there's the Darth Maul thing.
Yeah, Edgelord, Shadow Lord, whatever. It's a fucking terrible name.
Yeah,
awful. But yeah, live action stuff.
Sam Witwer talk about it. He's just like, yeah, it's going to be bad guys versus even worse guys.
Great. I'm sure it'll be great. What is coming up on the? It's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. We can keep doing this all night. I will be live again on Monday with Dale. We're going to be finishing off our Don Bluth retrospective, where we will be talking about Titan AE, a film that I currently haven't watched. So I'm interested in looking at that.
You've never seen Titan AE?
Nope.
You're kicked off the stream. Dale and I are doing the stream. Guys, Dale and I are going to be doing a stream this Sunday, whatever Chris just said. The
Monday,
Don Bluth retrospective.
Yeah. And then, we're finished. And then we'll have a couple of weeks. And then we are gearing up for a pretty big retrospective, another animated one, which could rival our Disney one. I'm really, really looking forward to that. And it is a particular anniversary of a certain animation company. So it's going to be a wonderful little tribute to that, and nice to watch some new movies, which I haven't seen for a change. This has been really fun tonight. So thank you for everyone who's jumped in the comments and kept the conversation going. We really appreciate you guys. It's great to see so many people turning up tonight too. And we'll be back. Mm-hmm. What? Sorry?
Yeah, no, I was just, we'll be. You said we'll be back. Are we doing?
Yes, that I think we'll announce that soon. I won't announce it now, but that's a pretty dead giveaway right there. We've got some things planned. We've got almost like a little mini retrospective of films planned leading up to a new one, which could either be very, very bad or very, very good, depending on the trailers. And we'll see. We'll see. We'll get there. Anyway, thank you,
The
and
Iron
we'll see you
Giant.
on the next stream. Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Good night, everyone.